Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I am absolutely thrilled to have a guest today. It has been a while since I've had someone on the show, and I really wanted to kick off 2026 talking about what has changed and what is changing in leadership. And leadership, not just specifically in a corporate environment, in general, but because most of my listeners are corporate, that is what um, I would really like us to focus on the most, which is why I brought in Laurie-Ann Murabito. She is an executive communication and speaking advisor who transforms high-level leaders and technical experts into indispensable industry authorities. As the creator of the strategic narrative framework, she helps executives move beyond sharing information to mastering high stakes communication that secures stakeholder buy in and drives results. She is a former corporate leader who built three successful businesses from the ground up, and her background combines she's an award-winning professional speaker with also deep expertise in leadership psychology. She's the best-selling author of Rethink Leadership and Rethink Your Leadership, and the host of the top-ranked Be in Demand podcast. Her client roster includes global organizations such as Johnson & Johnson, the American Cancer Society, and Bay State Wealth. Laurie-Ann is dedicated to helping leaders bridge the gap between their expertise and their delivery, ensuring they're prepared for their next promotion, global platform, or pivotal industry opportunity. And so, Laurie-Ann, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here.
Karen, thank you very much for the invitation. And it's always interesting to hear your bio. Like, it's one thing to write it out and to read it in your head, but when you hear it out loud, it's like, wow, I did all that stuff. And this all comes from me being a reformed, painfully shy girl who couldn't even make eye contact with people. And to look back on your life and wow, I did that. I did some of those really hard things that I never thought would be possible.
And, I've been following you and we've been in contact now for a couple of years just because I'm also public speaking, and speaking just in general is such an important skill. And to see what you've created also around that expertise, that knowledge, so many people need it. And so your experience also from corporate and then working today with so many different people, I'm so excited to have your opinion. So are you ready to dive in?
I am. Let's go.
Okay, great. So let me just pull up one or two questions. All right. So I want this to be very topical and thinking about kind of what you saw in the people that are contacting you, in the people that you're working with, kind of from 2025 and into 2026. What are, I would say, the biggest topics or the biggest pain points, the reasons maybe they're coming to you today
Hmm.
to, yeah, work on public speaking and executive presence?
Sure. So I'll share with you some evidence of what I'm hearing from my clients because, December has come and gone. However, a lot of people had their year-end reviews. And a lot of the reviews that I heard from people, like on sales calls or in my client calls, is I'm not concise. I need to work on my leadership, my executive presence. I am speaking more. I, need to say things and have people not just hear me, but remember what I said. So this is what clients and people are coming to me for. And I'm always fascinated, like, how did you find me? And they'll tell me, like, I found you on your podcast because I did a search in Apple Podcasts or Spotify and I typed in public speaking. So what I'm seeing as a trend is that people that are in corporate are realizing I need to get better at speaking in order to get that next promotion, in order to get the attention of the CEO, and in order to do something that I'm now calling strategic networking within an organization or within your industry.
And why do you think it's become more of a topic now? Why do you think it's evolved?
I think people are seeing that meetings are boring. And I'm doing more meetings. We're doing more, like we've got to update the board. We've got to have department meetings, but we're not reaching our goals. Like, how do we reach our goals? Well, we need more buy-in from more people. We need more people. I don't want to say just buy-in, but ownership of the goal. So how do we do that? We have to touch their hearts, their souls, their minds, and get everybody on board. And how do you do that? You do that with your voice. You got to be a little different with your voice. And what I mean by that is we need to speak in a way that gets people's attention. We want, like, the people that are at the meetings, we want them leaning in. Excuse me. We want them leaning in as we're speaking and not sitting back, crossing their arms like, yeah, I've heard this before.
And do you think, are you seeing it more, I would say, also virtually? Or is it an issue when it's just in person? Like, are the challenges the same in those two situations?
They're the same and they're also different. I mean, the virtual platform of communicating within organization, it's here. It's here to stay. It's not just we're renting the boardroom that's down the hall anymore and everybody's coming in. I mean, now we can use virtual platforms and connect with different departments that are that are in different parts of the United States, however big the company is. So speaking virtually, there are certain skills that are different than in person, but fundamentally, like, the foundation is still the same.
Okay. If you're working with someone, where do you start? What are the first two or three things that, um, yeah, that they would need to be sensitive to? Would they
Mhm.
need to create awareness around? Like, what is that starting point for a lot of people?
And it's not what you expect. It's because it's not, how do you pause correctly? How do you put emphasis on a word? It's going to be none of that. I always start with the foundation, which is you. How are you showing up? How are you walking into that room? How do you prepare to walk into that room? A client of mine, Patrick Verano, he actually just wrote his second book, and it's about what great teams do. And there's a great chapter in there, and I had to bring him onto my podcast to talk about this. And one of the chapters is about taking care of yourself in order to be a great team member. As he said, he goes, there absolutely is an I in team. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your team. If you don't fill your own cup, and I completely agree. If I don't eat right, if I don't have quiet time, if I don't go to the gym, if I don't do those things, I'm not taking care of myself. So that's some of the things that I start with my clients. And I usually get a little bit of pushback because they don't understand what I'm doing. And I'm just go
Okay.
with me. Just play with me. And so we will start with, like, if they do go to the gym, I'm like, okay, tell me about your workout. Do you listen to music? Do you not listen to music? I have a protocol called PSP, which is Performance State Protocol. And if your audience wants to learn more about that, we can share. The episode is
The link, yeah.
384 on my
Okay.
podcast. And it walks people through this protocol. And what it is about teaching your nervous system to show up at the 10.0 version of you every time. And you want to start prepping or training your nervous system before the event happens, because I want my clients to be able to step right into, I got this impromptu meeting. I need to show up And like, I didn't have time to prepare an intro speech, like an update, but how can I prepare myself so that I walk into that room and I've got that executive presence, I've got that confidence, I can command the room and I can leave a memorable impact on everybody that was in there.
And why has this become a topic now? Was it always a topic and people just ignored it and they worked through it? Or do you think it's becoming more important because something is going on in the workplace, and or is it somebody just realizing that that's more important?
Well, I think because Zoom has become so much more like the virtual platform. And with Zoom, we really can be multitasking, and nobody actually, like on the other side of the screen, can actually tell if you're really good at it. Like you actually can get away with this. However, how can we, as the speaker, really still get the person who's on the other side of the screen to be leaning in because they're so darn interested in what we're talking about? So I think that's one. Number two is people are seeing that they're getting passed over for promotions. Like, why did they get promoted when I've got more experience? And maybe even you've got a little bit more authority, but somebody actually jumped past you. So I think that's another aspect. And then the nervousness, or you're going to be speaking more and more in this in a new position, or you're getting ready for that next position. You've got your eye on a particular promotion on a level, and you are doing what you need to do, which is let me prepare, let me start acting as if I am in that position now. So you're taking on more and more speaking opportunities, really leveraging each of those opportunities into this is an opportunity for me to be seen by upper leadership, by the person whose team I want to be on. That's what I'm calling strategic networking within an organization, is
Mm.
being that speaker. Because here's what I ask a lot of my clients. I'm like, whenever you see a great speaker at an industry meeting within your organization, what do you do at the end of the meeting? And they all say, I go up to them and I tell them what a great presentation that was, what a great answer that was to that question. I go, yes. And that's what I want your future boss to do for you. I want them coming up and finding you, because in the back of their mind, they're thinking, I want this person on my team.
Um, I think, and tell me if you agree or not, but I think today one of the challenges is in big international organizations, there are so many moving parts. It's a matrix situation. There are so many stakeholders. The way that decisions get made it's always kind of nebulous. Nobody really knows.
Right.
And working on your visibility, I think up until a certain point, people, because I work with a lot of, similar and parallel
Hmm.
people, um, people think that doing their job is enough
Yeah.
and that
No.
they'll be noticed for their great results. But it is, for me, it is so important what you were saying, because I always say that visibility isn't vanity. It's part
Yes.
of the job to make yourself visible. And those speaking skills, I think, are so important to just reinforce that. Would you agree or do you
Oh,
disagree?
100%. When I did leadership development for Johnson and Johnson, part of the program, and there was like 3 different levels of the program, and part of the middle level of the program, we started to introduce networking. So we actually had networking events, a cocktail hour, and we brought in a lot of the upper level leaders, VPs, to come in, and we wanted these middle managers to start to network and get comfortable with walking up to somebody, extending your hand, having a conversation that is memorable and not just staying in the corner. I mean, like years ago, we used to tell people, you need to be networking. Well, now today, what I'm hearing from people is, I don't have time to network. I'm so busy on doing my job, staying focused. And that's why I think like having these speaking opportunities is a great way to be networking, to have people come to you. Karen, this sort of reminds me of when I first started speaking, which I accidentally said yes to a speaking opportunity
Tell
and
us about it. Why don't you tell us the story?
okay, because I really want people to understand that I was the shy girl who looked down and couldn't even make eye contact and had left my corporate job and was just like, yeah, I'm going to be a coach. And because if I build it, they will come, right? I had no marketing plan, no sales skills. But I was with a few other women and we were arranging a networking event because women network differently. So we decided let's have education plus the networking. And I was all on board for this. And then they looked at me and said, you do the speaking. And my head just went up and down and I shook it and I said, yes. But inside I was like, what are you doing? Like, you're the shy girl. However, I said I would do it. So now I had to show up and do the thing. And it wasn't very great. I had no beginning and I had no ending. It was just this middle part where I educated. I served from my heart this audience, which was a standing room only. And at the end, I said, and if you want to talk to me individually or ask me a question, I'll be in the back of the room. I just wanted to get away from all these eyes, but people approached me and said, do you work with clients? Do you have a website? Like, how can I get a hold of you? And I was just like, what are you talking about? So, I mean, like, that was like my very first speech, even as bad as it was, it still attracted people. And that's the beauty of speaking, whether you're a coach, a consultant, a VP, is that when you're really good, when you speak, when you use your voice, people approach you. There is something so energetic that a great speaker can attract the right people, can attract the buy-in. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
And what I love about also what you're saying is, for me, because I love public speaking. I've always,
Mhm.
it's always been a skill that I've absolutely loved. Um, I think there's also, um, you learn to manage your energy, and also people are attracted to energy.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of, um, coming back to what you were saying earlier about people want to, they're attracted by this speaker, they're drawn in. And um, for me personally, public speaking catapulted my career.
Yes.
And so I think that just it is such an important skill that maybe we've overlooked, maybe was left upon the wayside for some people in this virtual world. Um, but today, I think people are craving human interaction and
Yes.
speaking and being in the presence of someone. Um, it's just such an opportunity for the speaker and the audience.
I
What do you think?
completely agree. I
Yeah.
completely agree. And I also think that there's a way to really connect with people, even virtually, even like the audio version of this podcast. Like, you can't see anything. And chances are most people who are listening to podcasts, they're multitasking. They're doing something else. So how do I, as your guest, get their attention? I play with my voice. I use my voice. So here's the problem with meetings. And I think it's just a learned behavior in corporate is that people come in and they speak at meetings and everybody kind of sounds the same, like they're saying the exact same thing. They're speaking in this range and that's it. They don't go too high and they don't go too low. They don't play with their voice because there's certain things about our voice that as the speaker, I know I can change in my listener. And what I mean by that is depending on the speed that I'm speaking in, if I'm speaking really fast or if I'm speaking really slow, I can influence your blood pressure, your heart rate, your breathing rate. And that's how you can get people to lean in. So one of the things that I share with my clients is like, what is the feeling that you want the audience at and that audience can be even just a few people gathered around a table at a meeting. What is the feeling you want them to feel when you've got this slide up, when you're talking about this particular tip, this topic, this update? And I get them to decide What's that feeling? I'm like, well, that's where we start. If you want them to be inspired, if you want them to be curious, we start with that. And then we just get them to play with their voice. I mean, that's the fun part. And it can be challenging. So I was speaking at a 7-person CEO event. They were having an offsite. And when I say like 7 CEOs, they're from 7 different companies. And I handed them each like a sticky note that had an emotion on it. I said, tell a story. I said, and that's the emotion you have to speak from. And the rest of the group had to figure out what that emotion was. Now, this was the first time they'd ever done something like this. And for some of them, I was like, just want you to turn up the volume. But guess what? Everybody in that room figured out what that emotion was. So that was just with the first time trying this.
Mm, okay.
And I said, imagine if you practice this. What will happen, how much better you'll get at, let me determine what this emotion is that I want my team to feel, that I want the board to feel, that I want the audience at an industry conference to feel. And we start, yeah, that's one of the tips, and just talking about like industry conferences, you asked me about like different things that I'm seeing. And another thing that I'm seeing in people is that they are understanding my personal brand matters. And
Uh,
speaking is going to help me build my personal brand. A lot of people are seeing
mm,
the writing on the wall, companies being bought out by somebody bigger overseas, and they are concerned. They're like, I get speaking opportunities. I say no to them. I've been asked to be on podcasts. I'm saying no. And people are saying like, I need to say yes more, but I don't feel like I'm playing with my voice. I don't have that control over what I'm saying. We all think that, well, I grew up. Like I grew up, I learned how to speak. Like I already got the skill, right? Wrong. There's a
okay.
there's like so much to this, Karen, and I'm getting more and more into this. It's not just the public speaking skills. It's
Yeah.
also the voice skills. What does your
Okay.
voice sound like? Because we can use our voice to have a pattern interrupt, to get people to like perk up and like, what? What
Mhm.
what did they just say?
Yeah. Okay. Because and I mean, the first thing, just to coming back and kind of bring it all together, the first thing is emotional regulation or nervous
Mm-hmm.
system regulation.
Yes.
So very important point, and I think of course it starts from there. So many people are so nervous about speaking, but it is
Mm-hmm.
such an important point. And you can work on that. So I agree 100%. So that's one thing I'm hearing from you. The second one is your voice and
Yes.
realizing how important that is, how to play with it, how to communicate emotion. Um the third point I'm hearing also, personal branding matters. That's an
Yeah.
awareness that's coming that people are waking up to. And I love that you brought up um, the fact that companies are being bought. Like people, you need to be anticipating what is next. And I
Yes.
think that today there is just so much chaos in the world that you just don't know what is coming.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And this skill, um, public speaking, working on your voice, it will serve you, I think, like in every situation, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.
Yes. The ROI of learning public speaking skills is huge. I think it was
Mm.
Warren Buffett that said if you learn public speaking skills, you'll increase your value by 50%. And I agree
Wow.
with that. But I also think that if you learn public speaking skills, it'll increase your bottom line by closer to 80%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, so where would you tell somebody to start? Because you talked about nervous system, voice. Is there anything that somebody could do at home? Say they've got a meeting next week and they're like, okay, I don't have time to contact, Laurie-Ann. Would love to work with her. Don't have time. I have something this week. What is one small thing that somebody could do?
Well, the thing with speaking in corporate is that you have so many meetings. So you do need to be ready for those impromptu meetings, not, along with the meetings that you know are a couple of days away. So a lot of people do get nervous. So I always say, know your opening. What are you going to talk about in your opening? And is there any way that you can incorporate a story into that? Now, most corporate meetings don't have stories. Nobody's telling stories, so get ready for something different. And if you can tell a story, what happens is that your audience, everybody who's listening to you at the meeting, is can see themselves in the story. And if you have an analogy, sports analogies, travel analogies, food, diet, fitness analogies, if you can come up with some analogies, again, people can see themselves and they're like, oh, I get that. All right. So that's another thing. So I would say you want to grab people's attention
Mm-hmm.
and also get them to see the story. So by doing that, you're going to get over those butterflies because you already know what you're going to talk about. You'll get people to lean into what you're saying, and then you can go on with the rest of your presentation. And then your ending. Your ending is your call to action. And is there any way you can call back the beginning story to be back in that ending?
Mm.
That will look so polished, and people will be like, "Wow, like how'd you do that?" So that is one tip that I would give. And again, going back to the PSP, Performance State Protocol, I would definitely start learning how to do that, like train your nervous system so that at the snap of your fingers, you can just show up as the best version of yourself and walk into that room feeling really confident. Because when you feel really confident, you will also sound really confident.
Okay. Um, and I'd love, so thank you. I preaching to the choir. Um, why? So also in terms of visibility,
Mhm,
how, like, also if somebody says, okay, I'm thinking about a promotion, would love to have that job in a year or two. If they, and they say, okay, I know I need to work on my visibility within the company.
mhm.
Where do you think they could start? Like, how are there different types of meetings? Are there different forums? When can they start speaking? Like, also, if they knew that that was a goal, visibility, just one thing that you would recommend.
Start raising your hand during meetings and asking a thoughtful question. That's an easy way to start. If you don't feel comfortable and maybe you're in a position where you're not doing a whole lot of presenting to upper leadership, ask some thoughtful questions. And you want to always, like when you raise your hand, here's what I like about what you said, but here's what I'm curious about. Like, what if this happens? Or have we considered XYZ? Asking really thoughtful questions. So this is like the spotlight being put on you for a very short period of time, but it's a great way to start to build that public speaking muscle. Remember, play with your voice. Try not to speak too fast. Take a sip of water before you ask your question and make great eye contact. Now, how do you do that virtually? You look in the camera. Okay, now this is not an easy skill, but this is something that I have trained myself. Like even when I'm doing just coffee chats, Karen, I am like looking in the camera. So I'm only like barely looking at you, but it's like when you look in the camera, you are looking in the eyes of everybody who is
Mm,
also on that at that virtual meeting. But during a in-person meeting, if it's a round table, like look around at everybody
mm,
as you're asking the question. When you're looking at the speaker, like ask them, like whoever your question is directed to, ask them as well. Like by looking around at people, you're including them in the question. They feel like they're part of the question, a part of the event. And I would say the other thing is when you speak to one person, everybody feels like you're speaking just to them. That's
mm.
another, like, these are a couple of big skills that'll give you the biggest bang for your buck.
Okay. Um, all right. Oh, there's so many great questions. There's so many questions I would love to ask you because it's such, I, and this, I'll probably just go off on a tangent here for a second. But my daughter, who is 24, has started her business 18 months ago and
Mm.
founded all of it on public speaking. And today, the her business after 18 months is doing insanely well. She only accepts paid speaking engagements. And so seeing it also as a skill, it will pay off. And there's so many people that are so scared, but I can only encourage all of our listeners here to practice that skill to build the muscle. It worked for you, Laurie-Ann. I've seen it, it worked for me, worked for my daughter. Is there any last like words of wisdom that you would like to leave the audience with? And then please tell us, if somebody wanted to work with you, how did they do that? Where can we contact you and how can we listen to your podcast?
Okay, so I would let's just start with the first question, like where can you get started? Start now. Start at the dinner table. Excuse me. Start at the dinner table. Like you're surrounded by people that you love and who adore you. Start there. Where else are there opportunities for you to be speaking? Maybe you volunteer at a club or maybe your church or synagogue, like you could be speaking there as well. How
Yeah.
can you play with your voice? Those are great places to just start. Like just play with your voice. Don't be afraid of pausing a little extra long. Maybe speaking a little bit slower, maybe even just speaking a little bit faster for people. Play with your voice, play with how you show up and train your nervous system for that, all of this. So it's a lot of fun and don't be afraid of it. There is no speaker DNA. Like I wasn't born being a speaker. I learned how to be a shy girl. I learned that from my parents. So a lot of times when people show up on calls with me and they're just like, well, I'm shy and I'm afraid of speaking. I'm like, where'd you learn how to do that? What's your mom and dad like? And they'll be like, oh, like we find it. So it's a learned skill. So I'm here to tell everybody, as a reformed painfully shy girl, you can learn this also.
All right. Thank you
Yeah.
for the word of encouragement. So,
Yes.
where can we find you?
You can find me over on my podcast, which is Be in Demand, and my website is Speak and Stand Out. And if you would like to learn how to use your voice even more so, like one, I would recommend listening to that podcast episode 384 about PSP and also 370, which is about leadership presence, speaking with confidence for that next promotion. And if you would like to chat about your voice and how you can be using your voice to get that next promotion, you can go to speakandstandout.com, and I'm sure the link will be down below, and it will be .com/executive-presence. And I'll make sure that you have that link, Karen, in the event that we haven't shared that yet.
Yeah, no, and I will definitely link those episodes. I just also want to say that I listen to almost all of Laurie-Ann's episodes. I always learn something. They're extremely pragmatic, action oriented, simple. Like she gives so much value. And so I want to thank you all also today because this
Thank
has
you.
been fabulous. Even when you're preaching to the choir, there's so much that even I can take away.
And
So,
Karen,
Laurie-Ann,
yeah,
thank you.
thank you. And I so appreciate having this conversation because I'm really here to help more people, do their art, do their thing in the world. And maybe you and I need to, like have another conversation about this at a later date. Well, because it's one of my favorite topics, voice and public speaking.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much. And please, everyone, go check out Laurie-Ann, and I'll put all the links in the show notes. Until next time, thank you.